There's me and Richard. We've been researching for a new book about the history and archaeology of Barry and Cadoxton, right? And it's concerning the Romilly family, and you guys can test this out. If you look at when the Romilly family took over the reins of the Barry Manor and parish, right? You will come across a date that tells you that the Barry Manor and parish was bought by the Romilly family in the 1400s. It's all over the internet. But the Romilly family really didn't come to Barry until 1810.
Wow.
And because it's written on one internet site, everyone believes it and everyone copies it and everyone shares it on their pages. So therefore, all that stuff, all that information out there is just not fit for purpose. It's really not. Because it's not really telling us the truth. But people follow mistruth a lot. And with this present situation, the truth is very difficult to come by.
You can't question anything, can you?
Say that again?
You can't take a contrary opinion because people shout you down. It's terrible.
Do you know what? I came across a woman the other day on a horse just by the property here, right? And she was very, very opinionated. She said, "Oh, this COVID stuff was nonsense. I haven't had a jab. My children haven't had a jab. My husband didn't have a jab." I thought, okay, fair enough. I've got my opinion, and I'm not going to voice it in front of you two guys because that was a private conversation. That's nothing to do with you two. It's to do with the conversation I had with her. And then she started talking about the current situation, and her opinion was similar to mine. And what that opinion was is that we're not really being told what's going on. Because one, without elaborating too much, there's a politician in Bulgaria who's given an opinion, and he's lost his job because of that opinion. And it's an opinion that that there's something not quite right. And if people don't follow the narrative, you're all shot down. That's it. It's the end of the world. And this is the danger. We're not allowed to have an opinion.
Is this the same in the archaeological world?
Oh yes, it is the same in the archaeological world. For example, somebody contacted me today and they said, "Oh, why do you feel that you don't want to be on the new series of Time Team?" And I just thought, where the hell is he getting this from? I mean, I haven't even been asked. Right? He said, "What have you got against Time Team?" And I'm just thinking, hang on a minute, where is this coming from? And he's followed my stuff on the internet, and he believes that my opinion is not what Time Team would follow. Right? I'm a great fan of Time Team. I'm a huge fan of Time Team. But in the archaeological world, on a Wednesday evening, I teach a group of, there's 6 of us on a Wednesday evening, right? All male, right? So you can imagine it's a masculine, opinionated thing. And I've been trying to get everybody to look beyond what the archaeology means. And I've been trying to get them to look at this, and it really works. Some weeks I'm getting people saying, "Oh, X, Y, and Z," and it's exactly what I feel and what I think. Maybe I've indoctrinated them to feel that way, but these are people who have been teachers. These are people who have been engineers. These are people that have worked in industry. All these types of things, right? So, they have been around the block, and they're not really going to be. It's going to be very difficult to indoctrinate them, but they've got similar opinions to me, which is fine. But some of those opinions are quite out there, and this is. I've said this yesterday, and I'm going to say this again. I've been building a roundhouse, as you know, and there's 2 sets of posts that this roundhouse is being built out of. There's an inner circle and there's an outer circle, and the inner circle beams are higher than the outer circle beams, right? The outer circle posts, right? So basically, you put a beam, you put a roof beam, and it rests on the outer circle, and it projects inwards, and it's raised, right? It makes perfect sense. And the other day, I realised that what I was building was a miniature version of Stonehenge, right? So basically, if this answer really answers your point. So I'm going to just show you an image. I'm just going to show you an image on here, and I'm just going to get it up. I may as well show you what I'm talking about, because it's and what I'm then going to say is that if I and then I'm going to say to you, right, if I presented this to 90% of all archaeologists in Britain, they would shoot me down, and I wouldn't, and that would be it, right? So I don't know if you're seeing an image, but I'll get this image up here now. Okay. And it was very strange what happened yesterday. Very, very strange what happened in my class. And in the class, an engineer said exactly what I was just about to say. Right. So what I've got in the inner circle of the roundhouse I'm building, I've got six sets of uprights, which is 12 posts with lintels on them, but the lintels are not connected to the other ones. And then I've got an outside circle where all the beams are arranged and they meet each other, right? And then I said to everybody, I said, oh my God, we're actually creating Stonehenge. And then somebody said, oh, that's because they rest a huge timber on the outside and it goes onto the inside, and that creates a roof. And I said, well, if I said that to anybody within archaeology, they would basically say that's nonsense. You can't get timbers. You can't get timbers that are 20, 30 meters long. You can get timbers that are 30, 40 meters long. You can get timbers, right? And it makes perfect sense that you rest the timber on the outside into the inside to create an apex, and you've got a roof. And the reason why I'm saying that's so nuts is that this is what the antiquarians used to believe, that Stonehenge had a roof on it 200 years ago. The problem is they used to say it was a Roman temple. And actually by saying it was a Roman temple, but by saying that it's a Roman temple, what they're doing is they're taking us away from the facts, which are that this is a prehistoric site. And immediately people say, oh, it can't be a Roman temple because this was built in the prehistoric period. It didn't have a roof. You're talking nonsense, right? What they should have been doing, they should have been thinking like it was an engineer last night, right? And he said, are you just about to tell us, Karl, that Stonehenge had a roof on it? And I said, yeah, I'm really shooting myself in the foot by actually saying that. And the thing is, right? The thing is, I said, that's exactly what I was just about to say. And he said, yeah, I agree with you. And I'm just thinking, well, this is because we're thinking outside the box. But unfortunately, it would not be accepted for me to say that Stonehenge had a roof on it. And what I'm going to say, Goff, does the idea of having Stonehenge on a roof on it sound absolute barking nuts?
No, I don't.
No, come on, argue against me. Come on, Henry. You tell me why it's nuts, Henry.
I was looking at the picture and I'm thinking, actually, with all the stones in place,
yeah,
there is a logic to it.
Yeah, like a big roundhouse. Why not? O2 Centre.
And the person who said this agreed with me yesterday. He said, you think this is going to sound nuts? And I said, no, it's not. And he said it, and I said, that's exactly what I was going to say. And then the strangest thing was on yesterday. No, was it? No, on Monday. There was this chap. He came with an IBC unit for storing water, two of them, right? And he said, oh, I talked about the roundhouse, and he said, by the way, my boss has had delivered a 30-meter long length of oak. right? A 30-meter long length of oak. And that would be easy to go from the outside of this to the inside. And if you've got an arrangement of them, you could create a roof. And then I showed him the roundhouse, and then I realized that maybe this could have actually had a roof on it at one stage. But if I said this into mainstream archaeology, I would be shot down and laughed down, and there's just no way it could have been done. When in fact, the stones that we're looking at there range between 20 and 40 tons in weight. The big question is, trees are about that weight, right? But they're not as compact. And you're thinking, well, if they're able to do this, why aren't they able to put a roof on it? And all my life, I've said it's not possible putting a roof on it. And suddenly I'm teaching this stuff, and then I'm realizing that it was really, really possible. And I would love somebody to tell me why it's not possible. I really would. Can you both agree with me? That's the problem.
Count it.
Yeah, this is the point. That's the point. I'm not discounting it either.
It's a fair, you've got to be broad-minded, haven't you? Well, anything you have to. Yeah.
I'm gonna say that the inner circle itself uses mortise and tenon joint. You can see a little nipple there of a where these were put together, these trilithon stones with mortise and tenon, wooden architecture, like carpentry skills. They built these using carpentry skills, right? And then the way these then join, right, is actually tongue and groove. It's all carpentry. The people who built this were carpenters. So why did they build it if they didn't put a roof on it? And then I'm thinking, am I losing the plot? And then I've got people yesterday agreeing with me, and I got people today agreeing with me, and I'm thinking, well, is there something in this? Anyway, we got to crack on.
Sounds like a good TV program, Carl.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't be a presenter on Time Team then. Right, okay, yeah, I really appreciated that, and you know what? I've told you before, I don't mind being wrong. I don't mind admitting I'm wrong. I don't mind listening to other people's opinion. I don't mind that. But sometimes you go too far over the edge and you start to think, well, why is it nobody else is saying this? Why is nobody entertaining what I want to say? And then suddenly people start to say it, and I'm thinking, right, okay, there's got to be something in this. So what I want us to do, today we're looking at 5 islands in the Bristol Channel. And interestingly enough, we look a little bit about Steepholm, which is down by here between Weston-super-Mare and Barry. We'll look at Flatholm as well. I don't do much about Flatholm because you've heard lots of lectures about Flatholm when Pete's done them. We do Lundy Island, we do Caldy Island, and we actually do an island that's not on here called Denny Island, right? Actually, there's a little dot on my screen, but unfortunately that's spit. Right, but Denny Island, right? So that's Dun Island or Dun Sea, right? So this is what we'll look at them, and what I do is just doing a little bit of a relaxed way, because I got to be honest with you, the lectures I've been doing the last few weeks have been so intense. Like we've done Paviland Cave, then it turned out that when we did Creswell Crags, there were problems with the archaeology. And there's nothing wrong with anything we're doing today. It's just islands, right? That's it. Fine, we can see them. But there is something wrong. If we look at this and what we're going to do, we're going to. I'm not happy with what we're looking at there. So, and the problem is this last week. Every time I've done this, I've done. How many lectures have I done this week? I'll have done 1, 2, 3, 4. This will be my 4th this week. I've got two on, and every time I've got to delete all my stuff because my computer is not allowing me to keep stuff without it overflowing with data. So I just want to type in Bristol Channel map, right, for a reason, geology. We've got to start. If we're going to be looking at this in the prehistoric period, we've got to somehow get a that sort of shows a bit more. Hang on a minute. Let's just go with that. See if I can get the one I want. That's good. That one there's good at the top hand corner, but it's not got everything. Oh, okay, bingo. Okay, love it. Right, okay. So this is rather useful for us. What we've got showing all the geology in the Bristol Channel, the bathymetry, and we've got the tomography on the ground. And the one thing that this shows is that the levels, and that's really important to us today. And if we go back out again, we can see sort of the streams. We can actually see Lundy there over on the left hand side. And if we zoom in again, we've got those two little islands there. We've got Steepholm there, and we've got Flatholm, and over there, amazing enough, we've got Denny Island on the right hand side. Yeah, little rocks in the in this wonderful Bristol Channel that we all love, and basically over there we've got our Caldy Island as well. Now you think about this, and you go to the edge of the screen a little bit further on, just to the edge. Approximately 12,000 years ago, that's probably where the waterline was, and if you were say for example on Lundy Island, you would have looked out onto the great ocean. And one thing I said about Lundy on for example Tuesday was that I said, well, Lundy would have been the first island between 12 and 11,000 years ago to actually see water lapping at its rocks. And then what we then do see is that slowly but surely the water comes all the way into the Bristol Channel and starts to lap these areas such as Flatholm and Steepholm. There's one point to make, is that they weren't islands originally, they were mountains, they were hills. They were big rocky outcrops that stick out into this Bristol Channel that we're all familiar with. Very similar to Caldy Island. There's a big rock that sticks out. And in fact, probably Caldy Island was probably one of the last of the islands in the Bristol Channel to be completely environed by water on all sides, because the shallows of the likes of Caldy Island, it's only a mile at the narrowest point from the mainland to Caldy Island. And one thing I was saying is, if you can imagine this landscape 11,000 years ago, slowly but surely being covered in trees, and definitely before Lundy Island becomes an island, about 10,500 years ago, it was covered in trees, and in fact the entire environment was covered in trees. The reason the covering of trees within this Bristol Channel basin was one thing that led to the gradual decline and extinction of animals such as the woolly mammoth, the woolly rhinoceros, the grazing herds of Pastoralsky horses, and so on, all these different horse breeds, the gradual extinction of the auroch, because these animals were not able to compete with the tree. The tree itself takes over the land that they're grazing on, and big beasts like that are unable to make their way amongst this great forest. But by at least, we will go on to Lundy, we're going to look at Steepholm in a minute, by at least 10,000 years ago, Lundy Island was a complete island. Now, it does make you wonder what's going on with Lundy Island, because out of all the islands that we're going to look at today, not so much Caldy, but out of all the other out of those four islands, Lundy, Steepholm, Flatholm, and Denny Island, right? Lundy has a really nice level of archaeology. Now we've got to ask ourselves a question: why has Lundy got a nice stock of archaeology? What's going on? Why have we got lots of archaeology going on Lundy when they became isolated as an island 10,000 years ago? And then you need to ask yourself what's going on with Orkney, for example, because what is going on with Orkney is that with Orkney, for example, and I'm just going to try and find another image up here. With Orkney, for example, I know Orkney's not on this, but I wanted to put this one up there. Orkney managed to survive completely independently of the rest of Great Britain and give us some great things like stone circles, like the first pottery, like evidence of settlements and chambers and sky burial and all the rest of it. So did Shetland. But people have needed to have got to those islands first in numbers to populate them and to make them habitable and to cut down the trees and all the rest of it. And then with that, somebody can argue back at me and say, do you always think that Shetland was actually connected to mainland Britain? And somebody did argue with me one day. They said, you know, those maps that they show Shetland was actually connected to mainland Britain 12,000 years ago is rubbish. But people still lived and populated Shetland, right? So even though I'm saying that to have populated these islands, you would have needed to have got there by foot, it's not always the truth, is it? Easter Island, there you go. So in most cases, what we can say is that if the people have got to these islands and populated them in regards to before they become islands, as they were still hills sticking out with a canopy. And as suddenly somebody woke up one day and said, oh, there's a little trickle of water. The next day, there's a little bit more of a trickle of water. 3 years later, you've got to like, you can't get to either side of the Bristol Channel without getting your feet wet. And within 100 years, the likes of Steepholm and Flatholm become islands. So the one I want to look at first is Steepholm in a little bit of deeper detail. As we know, home means island, place, sheltered area, or whatever you want to refer to it. Unis Island. It comes from the Viking term. It's a prevailing term that comes from the Viking dialect, which tells us of Viking inference around our coast. You've got Home Island further out. You've got Grasholm, Skogholm. The name home is quite reminiscent. It comes from a Viking term, and that can be slightly debatable. Of what the meaning is, right? No, the term is Viking, but the actual term and the meaning is quite debatable, as I've said. So Steepholm is where we go, and let's fiddle around with Steepholm, and let's make sure I keep my notes up there. I don't know if any of you have been to Steepholm. You're more likely to have gone to Flatholm or Lundy Island or Caldy. There's one island. Say that again.
I've been pretty close to it.
Yeah, well, I haven't.
It's hard to get. It's hard to get on there.
It is very hard to get on there. And one island that none of us have been to is Denny Island. And no. I get very excited about telling you about Denny Island without knowing anything about it, which is quite exciting. And you get to that by the end. So it's a carboniferous rock throughout the Bristol Channel. You've got these carboniferous rocks. You've got the carboniferous rocks of Denny. You've got the associated carboniferous rocks of Flatholm and Steepholm. You've got carboniferous rock itself, which was created 350 million years ago. And what's basically happening 350 million years ago? This landscape is under the sea. This is the sea. That's created under the sea. That's it. The whole area is one flat underground plain of sea. Like 350 million years ago. By about the Triassic period, coming to the end of the Triassic period, about 200 million years ago, that carboniferous rock has been pushed up, has been erected into the landscape of the Triassic period. And the Triassic period is a period where you've got great shallow lakes, and these little things stand out as little islands within those shallow lakes. Yeah, they're islands. 200 million years ago. And then what happens is that then everything changes again. The Jurassic period, this stuff is forced back under the water, and you've got the Jurassic rock, which is the softer limestone. And then what happens is the whole landscape. So the soft limestones erode away over time, and the soft sandstones erode away over time. And what you're left with is these islands in the Bristol Channel. However, they were hills in the Bristol Channel before they became islands. Needed to correct myself on that one. So, looking at our Steepholm as well, and what we go. I just had a warning online that somebody was talking about this present situation and they've just lost their channel. So I'm glad we're not talking about it. So the island of Steepholm itself is 65 acres in area. So 65 acres in area. It's not a massive island, but it's fairly big. Alongside these are the two big islands in the Bristol Channel. 65 acres at low water. When it's high water mark, it's closer on 50 acres, right? But it's still a big area. And it looks out over the landscape, nearly up to 70 meters across the landscape, nearly as high as some of our highest cliffs on the English and the Welsh side of the Bristol Channel, which is usually about 100 meters in height. So it's administered by Somerset. Let's look at the archaeology a little bit. So what we've got is it's very likely. So this place in the prehistoric period saw an absolute complete felling of all its trees. And we know, for example, that people have populated this island from a very, very early time. We know that. Archaeology is only just coming to us. Now, if you want to compare Steepholm with Flatholm, there's more archaeology on Steepholm than there is Flatholm, but there's more archaeology on Lundy than there is Steepholm. And the reason why that is Lundy's a bit bigger, and Lundy hasn't suffered the fate of the Napoleonic War from the 1800s, and more so being used as the place of a Palmerston fort in the 1860s, which would have meant that it was garrisoned. It was used in the First and the Second World War, and you can imagine that this is itself an island that would have suffered. There would have been a lot of damage to anything that was there, but we still get in archaeology, and interestingly enough, there's evidence of Roman occupation, Roman era occupation, military Roman era occupation on the island. So that's great until about the 100s. We've got Iron Age stuff and before, which we'll just briefly look at just a few moments. We know there's some kind of priory there from about the 500s, maybe earlier. I would say a lot earlier than that. So you think, well, if anything's from the prehistoric period, it would be gone. But yes, there are caves, there are things that people have been looking at, and you do have caves associated with the geology. This helps us understand why we've got some of the early prehistoric evidence surviving on Steepholm. So later on, what we do find with Steepholm is there have been found various stones. We've got stones with carvings on much later, not in our prehistoric period, but just to give you a little insight into what's going on before we go on to Lundy. What we do know is there's a certain cave which you can look up in your own time, called 5 John's Cave. Now, interestingly enough, in 5 John's Cave, they've got evidence, probably going all the way to the Paleolithic period or before the place became an island. There's evidence of red deer being on the island. Now, well, red deer are not going to swim out to Steepholm, so I've got one of my facts wrong. It didn't become an island until about 6,000-7,000 years ago. I was thinking about Lundy a minute ago, but with 5 John's Cave, you've got evidence of red deer. So the red deer must have got out here 7,000 or 8,000 years ago before Steepholm become an island. They wouldn't have been able to swim out here. It's evidence that obviously the whole Bristol Channel was a flat plain and all these wonderful animals were there and humans got out there. And what we've got in 5 John's Cave as well on Steepholm is that we've also got evidence of human activity that was explored in 1975, which is great. So it's good that it was explored and the evidence was found in 1975, simply because lots of the evidence that we actually see on the Gower, when we look at the Gower, and we're going to look at that, and we look at Deborah's Hole on the Gower, and we look at that, and we look at Pavlan Cave and Long Hole Cave, and Dogger's Cave on the Gower. before we look at all that, I got to keep a straight face. Before we look at that on the Gower, and I always say, you know, people were working on the Gower in the early 1800s and 1850s. It's good that we've got work going on Steepholm in the 1970s because it's being scientifically recorded and scientifically offered to us. So we again, on Steepholm, we've got this rich archaeological evidence on Steepholm, and it's very, very important to us. And the rich archaeological evidence on Lundy as well, and the rich archaeological evidence on Caldy Island. What we've got is Mesolithic flints being found on Steepholm as well. A number of Mesolithic flints. So people are napping away quite happily. And when you think about it, when it did become an island, Steepholm would have been a lot bigger anyway, because the seas obviously eroded bits away. Were all the trees felled? I believe they would have been. I believe that they would have been. And the reason why I'm saying that is that on parts of the island, the soil level isn't exactly that thick, and soil levels would be very thick if trees would have probably still been here, maybe in about the 1800s. So probably in early times the trees have been felled, and we've got Neolithic evidence as well. So interesting enough, when they were looking at the medieval priory on the site, what they did find as they were looking at the medieval priory on the site in 1977, 1992, they actually found evidence of Neolithic flints at the time that this would have definitely been an island on Steepholm. So I wanted to chuck that in there and just to sort of give you a little bit of an idea. We haven't done much about Steepholm, but what I'm going to do is we're going to look at Lundy Island. There is Lundy Island. Good old Lundy Island. And has anyone been to Lundy Island? It's one of the places that actually are more like, to be honest with you, I'd say a fib. You're more likely to have gone to Lundy Island than you are to have gone to Flatholm, because the Waverley and the Balmoral stops at Lundy, and you can get trips and you can stay there, and there's accommodation and there's a pub and it's easier, anchorage and so on. Nobody's been there? Well, okay. I would say as well, one little fact that I've missed out is that to give you a bit of a comparison, when we looked at Steepholm itself is just over a mile in length. And it's quite, you know, it's quite a squat, fat rock as well, that Steepholm. So what we're going to do, we're going to now look, for example, at our Lundy Island. So I've just got to make sure that my cursor's working. We've got a bit of archaeology on Lundy Island. So I'm just going to click that, and we've got my Lundy Island prehistory settlement at North End Lundy, which is a scheduled ancient monument. So Lundy new staff wanted for magical pub. Okay, we'll stop that one. So what we've got at the far end, we've got a rich palimpsest of archaeology, a pantheon of archaeology throughout the ages, which is great. It's probably survived better and more visible than at Steepholm, and definitely survived more than Flatholm. Simply because Lundy's quite big, and it's bigger, and you know, it's not been massively occupied, and it's 3 miles in length. So you're not going to be able to walk from one end of Lundy to the other in under an hour. It's going to take you 1 hour to get to the other side of the island, which is great. Steepholm, you could probably you could probably walk from one end to the next, and you could probably walk around it, and that would only take you half an hour. But to get to one end to the other of Lundy, it's definitely a good hour walk. It's got an interesting prehistory, but it's an island that has seen a little bit of action associated with the Second World War. 2 German Heikel bombers actually crash landed on the island in 1941. But military-wise, it didn't play a massive role in regards to the Second World War. And that's probably why it's very much why much of the early prehistoric stuff and much of the other dating stuff has actually survived, which is very, very important. So it's 10 miles now today, coastal miles, sea miles, nautical miles from the Devonshire coastline. and it's actually a place that there are actually 23 properties on it, amazingly enough. There's 23 houses. Where on Steepholm, there's no houses, there's just places you can stay. And Flatholm, there's a warder's house, and there's the central cottage and the lighthouse. So you're 23 basic buildings, or probably more on the island, and a pub and all the rest of it. So it's a great place to be. A little bit like Caldy, really. The etymology, the name, you want to know about the name, it's believed the name actually comes from the old Norse name. And guess what? The island was populated within the Norse period. Puffins. Lundi means puffin in Norse, so it's the island of puffins. And it's had a number of different names, and it's strangely enough as well. we mentioned Orkney Island, and the Orkney Islands. Sorry, Orkney Island. I'll be burnt. I'll be burnt by a 1,000 Orcadians with that one. The Lundy Island is actually mentioned in the Orkney saga, and I've just got to do something a minute. Just if you can bear with me a second, we can stop sharing. I had to sort out the tea, and I'm just going to have a look at this a minute. We'll crack back on my end coming up as unstable. So I don't know, Henry. Hopefully, you're still there, Henry, and everything's fine. I just needed to see this. Let's go back to Lundy. Sorry about that little bit of a break. Well, whilst we're doing that, I'm just going to see if anyone's got anything that they want to say online as well. Right, I don't know what somebody's saying. Get an external hard drive. Oh, okay. So start broadcasting. So there we go. Right, back to Lundy. There's our Lundy. So obviously, what I wanted to do is mention. I just oh, fiddlesticks. Hang on a minute. Just something's just happened with the computer. It doesn't want me to talk about Orkney, obviously. Hang on a minute, folks. Just double check I've got that. I've got a very sensitive laptop today. As I said earlier on, I'm just going to make sure that that's there. Make sure that that's there. Thank you for bearing with me, folks. Let's go back. Right, basically, the island itself is mentioned in the Orcadian sagas of the 11 and 1200s, which is fascinating. That we've got this island with Scandinavian links. It's mentioned hundreds of miles away, and we obviously know that the name is Viking, Lundi, Orcadian saga, 11, 1200s. So what I wanted to mention is a little bit about the prehistory of the island, because that's where we are. That's where we are. We know, for example, that there's Mesolithic evidence on the island. We know that that's been found. We know that there's people living on the island probably about 11,000 years ago. So we've got Mesolithic flint. We've got Neolithic flint being found on the island, very similar to Steepholm. By about the Bronze Age, the island is really being inhabited. There's a lot going on in the Bronze Age on the island. And this is really, really important when we're trying to work out what's happening with the islands. So people obviously got there, and they're living on the island. So if we give you a little bit of an island, a little bit of data about the later things going on the island. and let's just have a little bit of a talk about it. So to get an idea of what's going on the island, it looks like we've got the island being wooded. We look like that lots of that wood has been felled, and when lots of that wood has actually been felled, we actually see lots of field boundaries being created. And what we then see, going into the Bronze Age, for example, we got proper settlements and evidence of settlements, particularly remaining on the north end of the island. And with that, we've got evidence of a number of burials associated with this landscape as well. So all that evidence is actually out there. And when archaeologists have extensively excavated on the island, and there's a huge sort of promontory, as I keep saying, and everything's mixed in, finding stone hut circles again into the Bronze Age, and it must have been quite a harsh life living on the island, being on the edge of the Bristol Channel and the Atlantic Ocean. And I sat down on Tuesday and I actually thought, well, these people with most of the trees felled, these people being reliant upon stone, these people living on the island for a very, very long time, as testament from the Mesolithic, the Neolithic, the Bronze Age, the Iron Age archaeology, people living there today, the Vikings going there, medieval period, everything going on. It must have been a very harsh life, but somehow people hung on there. People lived on this 3-mile long island on the edge of one sea, the Bristol Channel, and the Atlantic Ocean. And I think that's very important. And what that's telling us is that humanity doesn't really need those trees to survive. Humanity can survive. And when we want to do a comparison with something like Easter Island, for example, when we were looking at Easter Island, it was a very difficult lecture, because one moment we had them, there's evidence of them building the mowers up until the 1700s, and there's trees still around. And the next thing, there's no evidence of mowers being constructed after the 1600s, and all the trees have been felled before. And there's that idea that people, for example, on Easter Island, were not able to live without trees, and the trees still survive, and all these different things. And the point I'm trying to make is that people actually survive for a very, very long time. Did they fell all the trees? Well, there's not many trees to show on this image today. It's very likely that they use trees for everything, including boat building. It's very likely that we've got the harbourage sheltered behind the Atlantic, being used on Lundy Island, harbourage being taken by Viking traders in the 800-900s. And they may have had access to one or two trees still dribbling around for the repair of their ships. We don't know. But the prehistory tells us something very, very important about Lundy Island itself. So it's remarkable that the archaeology goes back 10,000 years. And we've got all the pantheon of information telling us that so much is going on there. So what I want us to do now, the next one I want us to go on to is I want us to look at the wonderful island of Flatholm. And what we'll do after the break, we'll look at Coldy Island and we'll look at Denny Island as the ender. So let's go to Flatholm now. So if we've done our Lundy, there it is. And if we go with, we've done our Lundy there, Steep Home, and we've done that, and we've got all these maps again, and you can see again on the edge of the world, the edge of the Bristol Channel is our Lundy, and very rich in archaeology it is, I may say. So what we need to do, we need to look at Flatholm. We're doing Flatholm, yeah, sorry. Let's just type this in there quickly, just make sure we got an image. The big question is, nobody really answered my question. Has any of you actually been out to Flatholm? Henry?
No. No.
Oh.
No,
There's our flat home. As I said, there's a cottage on there. There's a keeper's house, and then there's a lighthouse. And it's an absolutely fascinating island. And this is where we're going to go now. So I'm just going to make sure that today in this presentation, I've had on 3 occasions I've pressed the wrong button and I've lost everything. So we're just going to try and do this. Steepham itself, it belongs to the English side. Lundy belongs to the English side. But what actually belongs to the Welsh side is actually Flatholm. And Denny Island actually belongs to Monmouth as well. But nobody knows whether Monmouth is in England or Wales, but that's a bit of controversy there. So Flatholm itself, obviously meaning flat home, the flat island, the flat shelterage. And I have been to Flatholm, and it's a very, very interesting island. It is quite eerie as well. The sense of silence out there. I have stayed on Flatholm as part of a thing that I did with the Flatholm Society back in the 1980s. I've been out on about 5 or 6 trips to Flatholm, so I've been out there a few times, so I know the island. I remember the last time I went to Flatholm, I got the group out there from Archaeology Cymru, and I can remember the guide saying, "Oh, you're going to come with us?" And I said, "No, I'm just going to sit on the beach." And that's what I did. I just sat on the beach, and everyone was only on the island for about 2 hours, and I just sat on the beach, and I thought, this is just such an amazing place. And what would Flatholm have been like with trees on it? It hasn't got trees today. It's got little bushes and stuff. But however, I've basically said when we look at Lundy Island that it was a very harsh life living on Lundy, with storm conditions and waves maybe hitting the rocks and sort of more or less going over the island and all that type of stuff, because Atlantic waves can be quite tall, as Goff will tell us. But Steepham and Flatholm are a lot further back, and if you're in the center of the island, then you can forget about the sea, because you're away from the sea, and you can be away from it all. And it's just trying to get into the minds of the people that actually once lived on the island. Interestingly enough, it's in area. It's smaller than Steepham. As I said, Lundy, Steepham, Flatholm, Caldy Island. Oh no, that's debatable, isn't it? No. Yeah, Caldy actually comes before that. So Flatholm is one of the smaller islands. So Flatholm itself, its length is 0.4 miles. So it's Steepham is 0.6. Lundy is 3 miles. And the width is just under 0.4 miles as well. And interesting, if you set out, you by those black rocks there, you could wander around the island and be back within 10 minutes. It's that small. But what we do find in amongst the massive changes that we've had on the island, and this is the same thing that can be said for Steepham. When we want to talk about the removal of the trees, right, and we want to talk about humans changing this landscape quite dramatically, and then you've got in the Roman period, you've got in the medieval period, you've got all the stuff going on in the Napoleonic period. You would think that there was nothing left of the original island, but there is. On the island, you've got its own variety of wild leek that's not been devastated by human beings or animals. A unique strain of wild leek, not being planted there or anything, we believe. There's also something called a rock sea lavender. It's really beautiful, actually. A beautiful head on it. I've seen it. And you've got very rare plants, very rare grasses that only grow on Flatholm. And you're thinking, well, they haven't been brought there by man. So you're thinking, well, were they part of the original flora and fauna of the island? No, I've just talked about fauna, haven't I? No, I haven't mentioned the slow worms. There's a huge colony of slow worms on the island. How did they get there? Were they taken over by human beings? No. So that is again proof that Flatholm was once an island, because that was proof that Flatholm was once a hill and connected to the mainland, because you actually find slow worms on there. And interestingly enough, not in my notes, but you can actually find lizards on the island as well. How did they get out there if Flatholm wasn't once part of the mainland? You can actually find little lizards, and it's an amazing thing to. I've seen little lizards on and the slow worms on Flatholm. It's quite strange, and I'm going to say it. We know that there's not snakes on island, but from your knowledge, Henry, are there slow worms on island?
I'm not entirely sure, actually. I'll have to have a look.
They're definitely not snakes on island. We know that because St. Patrick sort of banished them, didn't he? The point is, so what I'm trying to say is that everything that I'm saying is very much borne out. We don't know of human beings introducing slow worms. We don't know about human beings introducing lizards to islands. So that's basically proof vis-a-vis that this was part of the mainland at one point. So talking a little bit further on, one of the great anathemas with the island is that when you actually go onto the island, and actually one of the people who's actually a tour guide is Peter, that's actually given a couple of talks for you guys, and one of the things that we do know about is that there's this great search for earlier archaeological evidence. There has been a Bronze Age axe found on the island, Bronze Age. So that takes the dating of archaeological evidence on the island to 3,000 years. And in the back of my mind, there's been some flint found on the island, but from what date, I do not know. I do not know where the whereabouts are. And interesting enough, this is a very interesting point. And I've just got to grab a biscuit. The biscuit's there. And here we go. One of the things is that this bronze axe head wasn't found until 1988, right? And what that tells me is that with everything going on in the island, there are still things to be found. Okay, the other thing as well is we do know there's been a great discussion about where the original monastery was on the island. Apparently, there's great connections with St. Cadoc. There has been a medieval grave slab found on the island associated with the Knights Templars. So we know that there's stuff going on there, but it's just trying to find the prehistoric evidence, which is one of those great enigmas in connection with Flatholm itself. Now, whenever I've been on places like Sully Island, which by the way wasn't an island until about 700 years ago, so it's not a true island in the Bristol Channel. And there's something else I want to get at as well, which I've got to try and make sure. If I forget it in a second, it's other islands in the Bristol Channel which no longer exist. When we look from Sully Island to Flatholm, we see this island which is 3 miles away from the coast, and we look at it and we think that that's quite an amazing island. It's beautifully green. It looks lush. There's loads of seagulls there. It's a beautiful island. We look at it, and similarly, you could actually say about the likes of Steepholm. And Steepholm, since there's been some bushes and some trees introduced, and they grow there, so it's quite a lush-looking island. Whereas there's some low-lying bushes and so on Flatholm as well now, which have obviously been reintroduced or have established themselves because of bird droppings and so on. And you look and you think, well, what did people in the past think of these things? that's where we're going to go now. So what we're going to do, and then I'm going to think about the other island. What did people in the past think about these things? So if we go with this, we think, well, the date, here we go, drum roll. The date itself is 12,000 years ago. What's happening is the ice is melting. It's the end of the last ice age. Geologically, we're into the Holocene period. We've moved away from the Pleistocene period. All of this is really, really important stuff. In terms of humanity, we've moved from the Paleolithic period into the Mesolithic, this sort of Meso age. Okay, the Middle Age, Paleolithic, the beginning of humanity and all that stuff. The Lithic, Meso, middle, Meso, middle. So we've got this Mesolithic period. Things have changed. Things are changing. The ice is melting. This plain itself is got tundra on it, but sooner or later, within 1,000 years, there's grasses growing across this landscape, and there's trees growing across the Bristol Channel, all the way from Barnstable Bay all the way over to Goldie Island, Carmarthen Bay. There's trees growing across all of it, and we know this, and we actually know this as fact, because if you go further on, beyond Goldie, towards Milford Haven, there's a place called Maros Bay, and if you go to Maros Bay itself, what you do see is actually tree stumps at low water level. Maros Bay, it's beautiful. You can see these tree stumps. It's unbelievable. It's an amazing sight, and that's Noah's forests. And what we're going to look at next week, we're going to actually look at look at Clement Reed, and Clement Reed is the guy who tells us particularly about Noah's submerged forests and the landscape of Britain once being connected with Europe and all the rest of it. So that's what we're doing next week. So we know that as archaeological fact. And actually, when they were building the second dock in Barry in 1895, they were actually finding tree stumps really lower down and evidence of humans, 14 feet below sort of the level where they were working. So we find 40 feet, not 14, 40 feet. And all this stuff was being found, so it was great stuff. Anyway, back to what I was saying. So we got 12,000 years ago, and now we've got 11,000 years ago. Lundy is looking at the sea approaching. Trees are taking over. And what you do see in the distance, still before the trees really start to colonize Steepholm and Flatholm, as you start to get to the sea, right, you might be able to see a huge hill in the distance sticking out called Steepholm. And if you go a little bit further to where the bridge is, in Bridgewater on the map, you start to see the likes of Flatholm. There's another hill there, Flatholm, right? So if you turn around and walk about 10,000 years ago, you wouldn't be able to see these things, because one, they would be surrounded in, they would be clumped in trees, and the landscape that you would be walking across would be a dense woodland and a dense forest. So in other words, you wouldn't be able to see the hills in the distance because you were in amongst below the tree canopy. So you wouldn't be able to see anything, right? And it would have been very difficult for you to have got back to Lundy Island. This is a 2,000-year journey. It's going to be very difficult to get back to Lundy Island. But if you manage to get back to Lundy Island about 10,500 and maybe 10,000 years ago, you would now struggle to get out to Lundy Island because the water was starting to surround it, and it'd be very choppy waves and so on. And you're starting to wave at people on Lundy Island whilst they put their hands out in the clearings from the trees on Lundy Island and are waving at you. And what you can hear in the landscape is you can hear napping activities. And this is one of the things about this great Mesolithic prehistoric world, the idea that the napping of activity would echo down this wonderful Bristol Channel, bumping off the tops of the trees and the leaves, and the echo would flow down the valley, and all this napping activity. And occasionally you might hear the creak of a felled tree as well, or a tree because it had been standing hundreds of years, decided to give up the ghost and was actually naturally falling over itself. So what we can think about is that the other thing that I wanted to mention, right? because there was another thing I wanted to mention, wasn't there, folks? Yes. I wanted you to remind me of that. There were other islands within the Bristol Channel at one stage. There were quite a number of them. And when you look out from the coast, for example, at if you look out the coast, it's not shown on there, is it? So let's look at another little bit of a map. There we go. That's better, isn't it? So if you look out and you look out where the TR4 is, and approximately where that little red dot is on S1, that's Scare Point and Scare Rock, which was actually an island at one stage, and it would have been a slender slip of an island which has been extensively eroded away, and people would have lived there. I'm saying that I'm saying with conviction, without my fingers crossed, people would have lived there, because we've got archaeological evidence of people living at all these other islands that we've mentioned today. They're living at all these islands. All these islands are inhabited. But when we look at Denny Island, we look at something very, very special indeed after the break. And what we do find is that the prehistoric period has not been shaped by the incoming trees, and the prehistoric period hasn't been shaped by the incoming water. Basically, prehistory has had to continually retreat. So it has been shaped by those things. Well, when it's retreating, it just leaves behind. It leaves the occupation behind on those islands that I've been mentioning. And further on along the Bristol Channel, basically towards where it's marked there. Oh, I just realized this is a map of where they want to put the tidal barrage, isn't it? So if you look at there, it's got Fleming Lagoon, right? Fleming Lagoon. Between Fleming Lagoon and that, just above that is a place known as Gold Cliff. And in the muds of Gold Cliff, there's preserved footprints, because at Gold Cliff, let me get my dates correct. At Gold Cliff, don't quote me on this. At Gold Cliff, we got footprints dating back 6,000 years ago. So people walked in the muds at Gold Cliff just as the water and the seas were coming close into that coastline, lapping around the base of Steepholm and Flatholm just before they completely become an island for the final time. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just mention that we've got a very rich archaeology on Lundy, an archaeology still to be found on Steepholm, an archaeology that is tantalizingly offering us something at Flatholm. And after the break, we will look at Caldy Island. But before we go there, and Henry, on this one, have we got an answer to the snake thing for a start?
Yes, I'll just put a message up.
Oh, right. Can I read this?
Slow.
Yeah, actually, we'll stop the sharing a minute. And I want us to have a little bit of a discussion before we have our break. And I'm just gonna look at that. Right, here we go. Slow worm, not native to Ireland, but was introduced in 1970 from the UK. Why? Why?
No answer to that.
Oh, could it have been?
Someone did.
Could it have been 1969, the Troubles, and they thought that some Irish nationalists in the north thought, if we introduce slow worms, right, they can take on the British Army.
It was. I think it's the only location is the Burn Country, which is obviously where it's all rock stripped by glaciers.
Can I ask you? Can I ask you something there just quickly? Right. You mentioned about the burn country being stripped by the glaciers, right? If I turned around and said to you, which would be what most archaeologists would say, the island at one stage was completely covered with trees, that wouldn't be right, would it? Because you've just said that there's a place in Ireland that is barren and rocky, or was it always been barren and rocky as the trees been removed? What's the answer to that? Or is that another answer?
Well, I think the area is extremely barren. There's no soil at all. Obviously, trees in Ireland, yes. But the centre part, it's like a hollow. So the outside is like a resonant area, and the centre is where your trees dominate. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's very, very interesting. That's interesting, very much. What I'm going to do before we ask any questions, and Goff and Henry, you've got a ban on something else today. Sorry to put bans on, right? But I don't want you to look at anything to do with Denny Island, because I want you to think about outside the box. We're gonna look at Denny Island at the end. We're gonna look at Denny Island after we look at Caldy Island today, right? So that's what we're gonna do. Okay. And I don't want you to look anything up, but I'm going to ask you a question. And the one question I'm going to put to you is it possible as an archaeologist, I can say there's archaeology there without any evidence to say that there's archaeology there in the first place? And we're talking about Denny Island. And strangely enough, that's exactly what we'll be discussing. So that'll be a question for you to think about after, and sort of come back to me after the break. So that's really, really important. And before we ask any questions, I've got to say the thing that is also banned in these classes, right? So I've banned 3 things. I've banned talking about the recent thing. Right? I'm getting a bit like Boris Johnson now. I banned looking at research to do with Denny Island. And the other thing that is banned, that is unbanned for me mentioning today, is, by the way, the next tranche of money is now due, Goff and Henry. And I know you don't want to part with 50 quid, right? Yeah, Goff has just left.
For March.
Well, I'm just telling you. It's due. It's coming up. It's got to be done for after next Thursday. After the class next Thursday, you've got to pay. Otherwise, I'm going to send the lads over.
After next Thursday, okay.
Well, it's got to be. It's because you two are so tight, didn't you? Yeah. So we're still keeping with that. So it seems to work. So that's really good. So I just thought I'd let you know. And the other thing as well is, right, Goff and Henry, right? If you get that done after next week's class, right? Yeah, I won't have to mention money for a whole 9 weeks.
Good. That'll be good.
Do you know what? The tax man chases you, don't he? He sends you endless letters. I can remember with the limited company side of things, we had letter after letter from the tax man saying, you've got to do your tax return, even though for the first quarter, just as you set up, there was no income, but you still got to do a return. And I sent them a letter saying, how can we do a return when there was no money for the limited company in the first place?
It's anyway, a nil return.
It's a nil return. Nil. Right, Goff and Henry, anything you want to ask now? Before
in my professional capacity.
What's that?
In my professional capacity as a qualified accountant.
Are you?
Oh, you should have said that.
You should have said that. You couldn't do our books, could you? Because the thing is,
you're too far away.
I could come and meet you in that dodgy bus shelter in Wick. You know the one. We could meet on the roof.
With the porn.
And apparently on the roof there's some magazines that
yeah,
we
but
can.
we've got a new one now.
What on that one by the green?
We've got
the
a new one. It's got solar panels. No, there's what as you leave the village now, they built a new one. It's got little solar powered lights.
Well, they won't last long. I know where they are now. Yeah, this ain't going well, is it? One we can meet on top of the bus shelter, and we've got all those magazines that we can put in a brown bag and send them to Jim because he'll read them. And then we'll do our accounts on the top. And also, whilst I'm leaving the village, there's a place I can get solar panels. And is there a computer thing? You know what's going to happen now, don't you? It'll be gone, and you'll know exactly who took it.
Yes.
So, right, Henry, anything?
I'm actually really enjoying this because obviously coming to the area, you know, in the last few years, and we walk along the coastline and looking at the various rocks and islands out there. It's actually adding an awful lot of information that I've struggled to find. So that's great.
And the thing is, lots of this that is the point I made, right? In regards to the internet thing, right? Lots of us in archaeology thought the internet would be the answer to everything. And I'm going to say it. There's a website out there called Archaeologist that is absolute rubbish, and it's meant to be the archive for for archaeologists to look at for the information and all the rest of it. It is so bad. Because they just put anything in there, and it's just so badly upkept. So then, when you're trying to find real information, it's just so difficult to work out the real stuff from the stuff that isn't. So that's you done, Henry. Anything you want to ask off before we have a break?
Yeah, I just wanted to tell you a story about.
Go for it.
It won't take long. About 4 years ago, this plant appeared in my garden, a beautiful yellow plant. And I'd never seen it, and I hadn't planted it, don't know where it came from. So I took a photo, went to because I'm in the Cottage Garden Society, went to a few people and said, "What is this?" And they said, "Oh, that's a Lundy cabbage."
Ah!
It's unique to Lundy. It's the only place in the world it grows. And it's a member of the primrose family, but it's also a brassica.
Yeah.
So it is a cat of the cabbage family.
Nice.
And they think the seed might have been blown in a southwesterly gale from the island, or it was delivered with some means from some bird and landed in the garden, and it grew. Amazing.
What about somebody taking the cutting and having it planted?
No, it wouldn't grow. No, it wouldn't grow. It won't grow anywhere. It can't be seeded. It's the only place it's grown. It grew in the garden, but it didn't seed itself.
All right. Oh, that is absolutely amazing.
Yeah, it is. It was amazing. You can look it up online, actually. It's unique to Lundy, and the nearest relative is actually indigenous to southern Spain and North Africa.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, Lundy cabbage.
Oh wow!
And the other thing, Lundy Island, you didn't mention it. I think you told us before, but earlier I saw it somewhere about the pirates.
Yeah,
on Lundy.
The Marinesco family. Yeah.
Yeah, you didn't. I know you haven't got time to mention everything, but
no.
That's quite interesting to research, isn't it? And the other thing is, it's not the Gower, it's Gower.
Oh my no!
Yeah.
Right. I need to take this up with you, right? Okay. So in my book, The Romans in South Wales, I corrected every single reference to Gower. It said capital T, the Gower, every single thing. Right. I changed that. It probably cost me about 50 quid because we have to do a re-edit because of you, right?
True though, isn't it?
But then somebody said, "Why have you put this through the whole thing?" And I said, "No, it's actually the Gower."
No, it's Gower.
What? I thought you said it was the Gower.
No, it's not the Gower. It's Gower.
Oh my God.
You look at any map or chart, and it's Gower, just Gower. Like it's Wales, not the Wales.
I thought it was supposed to be the Gower.
No.
That's what we changed it all to.
Well, it doesn't really matter because everyone calls
I mean, it does matter. It costs what? I got to look this up now. Oh my God! I have to do a re-bloody print now because of that. We'll have to recall.
Do I get a refund?
We'll have to recall all 800 copies.
Yeah,
no, you don't get a
refund now.
Sure.
I thought you were winding me up.
Expenses.
Calling it the Gower.
No, I thought it was the Gower.
No, it's just Gower.
Oh God, I feel really depressed now.
I think we should have a cup of tea and forget about it.
Hang on a minute. I'm just looking here now. Hang on. No, but we'll north of, south of, tribal, coastal regions. Oh God. For some strange reason, it's not in here. I think I must have edited it all out. I think I was having a bad day. Oh, right. Okay. Don't worry. You'll have to get your copy. Get your copy, Henry, and see if you can find any references to Gower or the Gower, depending on which one it is. Have you got your copy there, Henry? We got to do this.
Look.
Yeah.
Well, look at any map. It's referred to as Gower.
Not the Gower.
No.
So why do people call it the Gower then?
Well, because the Plone, even BBC sometimes call it the Gower, but it's actually Gower. Unless, say, for instance, there was a carnival on there, and it would be the Gower Carnival. But the actual place, the peninsula, is Gower.
Do you know what? There is loads of stuff in this book about the. There is loads of stuff in the book about Gower, right?
Yeah, but you are. Got it right.
But now I can't bloody find any. I think they were all edited out. Oh God! All right then. Anyway, let's have a break, folks. It'll be about 15 minutes, I think. So we need a break because my head's gone.
All right.
Longer.
Okay. See you in a minute. Okay. Anyone watching online? We have a break now. So this is where we're going to go. And after that conversation about Gower or the Gower, I'm having a blonde moment. So yeah, here we go. Break for 15 minutes. Like and subscribe. And I'm going to take myself off sound.
I think I found it. Page 63. The Gower. Not this thing. Page 63 of his book.
Hello.
Hello. I found page 63 of his book. He says the Gower.
Ah, he's wrong, isn't he?
Took me a while, but I found it. I'll send him a little message.
The question is, are we gonna get excited when we look at Deborah's hole?
Not on page 63 of your book. Right at the bottom.
Oh no.
Oh yes. The Gower. Capital T H E capital G.
You can see I changed it all to the Gower.
Oh,
I found one myself.
I found another one. Same page.
That's his fault because I got it the wrong way. Oh my God, here we go. Ideal for the Vale of Glamorgans and the Gowers mixed flour.
Page 62.
Okay, you've made your point. I stuffed up.
Actually, this is worse because because you've got flatlands of South Wales such as the Gower, but you've used not a capital T this time. You've just used lowercase.
Just gets worse.
Oh my God.
I wish to claim a refund. I haven't got beyond 63 at the moment.
You ruined my day.
Well, someone has to.
Yeah, that's true.
You might as well have it from the foreign invaders.
Yeah, well, you are a bit foreign, aren't you? And your phone's ringing.
Yeah, that's not mine.
I think it's some Bombay trying to sell me something.
Bombay?
Yeah.
Oh,
you get those calls? Well, you wouldn't, would you? But yeah.
No, I do get them. I get texts and emails.
Yeah, you go on the preference phone thingy.
I am.
It's not working then.
And I have this choose to refuse thing on my phone, my phone company, which costs me a month. And I can now cancel that call and block it in future. But what you're looking at is a huge warehouse full of people, all on different lines, phoning these numbers up. Sat in Mumbai.
The thing is, can I ask you a question? You know these emails and texts that you get from people saying, "Oh, I want to give you £1 million." I bet you one amongst all of them is actually genuine.
I doubt it.
Oh no, come on! There's got to be some. There's got to be one.
Well, why would want to give you £1 million? I mean, I know we just discussed we've got to be broad-minded, but I mean that's ridiculous. I mean, why do people fall for that sort of thing?
Well, well, the thing is, when I went to that garage up in Landau, there was a woman in there called Liz, whose name shall not be mentioned. She said, "If you spend a night with me if you spend one night with me, right, I will give you £1 million."
I'd give you £1 million if we did that.
Oh yeah, you're on. The question is, would I live? Would I actually survive the encounter? Okay, right. Let's crack on, folks. We're gonna look at the next island.
Do I tear page 63 out and page 62, or?
Oh, look, mate. Right, shut up. I'm already upset as it is. Oh, right. The thing is, usually I get upset with Goff saying, "Oh, I am seeing enough images today, and I wanted to see some this and that," and I just say, "You tell that." I wish we hadn't even bothered with Gower.
You've got to get the price. You've got to get the fact.
Yeah, but hang on a minute. I am convinced. I was convinced when I went through the book and it said Gower. I thought, oh my God, that's wrong. It's got to be the Gower.
No. No.
Oh no. Oh God.
But also, is it the with a capital T or not with a capital T?
Yeah, exactly. It's even worse. Who did the proofreading?
Well, I did. Somebody did say why have you changed it to the Gower? And I said, because this guy told me to do it.
Oh yeah. Like you take any notice of what I say.
Yeah, well, I obviously did with that.
Twit.
Anyway, Caldy Island, boys and girls, hermaphrodites. There's our Caldy Island, and I don't know if any of you have actually been to Caldy Island, but it is only.
Oh yes.
You've been there, have you? Did you? How did you go out there? Did you go? Well, obviously you went out on the blooming little ferry, didn't you?
On the little ferry, bobbing up and down.
Yeah.
Walked across the whole island to the other side. Very peaceful.
Did you go to the little? Did you go to the little church in the middle with a nice steeple and?
Went there. Went to the lighthouse as well.
Are you able to go inside the lighthouse?
When we went, no.
Oh right, okay. They probably thought you were. They probably thought you were like. I'm not going to say it because I'd upset you. Right, okay. Yeah. Anyway, Caldy Island, right? Caldy Island. No, we'll get this done in a minute. Caldy Island, as you can see, it's only a mile away from the coastline, and it's probably one of those islands in the Bristol Channel that may have come to being an island quite late. We do have a nice potted recorded history for this wonderful island itself, and we've sort of got a recorded history going back at least 1,500 years, and it sort of ties in with the religious connotations that you get, for example, with Flatholm, and the religious connotations that you get with the likes of Lundy Island as well. And it's one of the holy islands of Britain, but obviously we're looking at prehistory. And today there are 40 permanent residents and a varying number of monks on the island. And what I want to do is just mention a little bit about the prehistory. The name itself probably originates from a local saint, and how the name Caldy Island comes from a local saint known as Saint Pia. I don't know, but apparently that's where the name originates from. And you've got Saint Prior's Day as well, Pia's Day. Anyway, so it may be actually that the name could actually derive from a Viking name, which means cold, Caldy Island, Cald with a K. Say Island, Cald, say Cold Island. That's where they think the name might actually originate from, rather than a saint that we can't really work out the link. So we get to the recorded history from about 1,500 years ago. But what we do find is that we've got on the island itself, we've got a wide array of very early prehistory. We've got archaeological evidence coming from the early Mesolithic period, at least 12,000 years ago. But it's said as well that we've got the earliest evidence of any of those islands that we mentioned anywhere in the Bristol Channel. And what that evidence is that we've got artifacts from one of the caves here, dating back to beyond 12,000 years ago. So interestingly enough, people were living within the landscape of Coldy Island at the time of the last ice age. And then we've got a continuous occupation on Coldy Island all the way up to the modern day and age, because as we've already said, people actually live there today. So again, looking a little bit about that island, it would be good to sort of give us some facts. So those are the facts that we're going to look at now. So the three caves discovered on the island. You can look this up on the internet, which we'll just mention briefly. There's a cave known as Nana's Cave, and Potter's Cave that was excavated in the 1950s, which we'll mention a little bit about. We'll mention a little bit about Nana's Cave, and the Ogof Ir Achan Cave, which simply translated means the cave of the ox cave that was excavated in the 1970s. So with the one cave, the first cave that we're going to mention, Nana's Cave itself, out of all the caves, out of all the evidence that we've looked at from these islands, we've actually got human remains being found at Nana's Cave, which likely very much go back to the Mesolithic period. We got shells being excavated in that place known as Nana's Cave, but the excavations were done in 1911, so we could be a little bit suspicious of the dates, but that's life. More excavations in the 1970s. And what the excavations in Nana's Cave in the 1970s really told us was of this occupation, was given us dates to this occupation. And what we find is there's tools, there's animal remains, and coated on these tools and animal remains from the Mesolithic period were stalagmites. So they couldn't have even come from anywhere else. You've got they're fused in with stalagmites. The stalagmites would have formed over a very long period of time. So that gives you an idea of what we're talking about, the Mesolithic period itself. So if we mention a little bit more about this Nana's Cave, if I can just gently get my notes up here, if I'm a little bit more better with the screen, and if we gently do that without losing anything, this is back to that cave called Nana's Cave that we mentioned. You can find a lot of information about on the internet. Just gently, and with Nana's Cave itself, with the stalagmites and with the bones, with the animal bones, with the human bones, with all the flints found in there as well. We know that cave in particular was occupied at least from around 10,000 years ago, when the view across to the Gower, that's what it's got in front of me, was over dry land. It says it here, the Gower. It actually says it.
Well, it's wrong.
Okay, we're all wrong, but it says the Gower. It doesn't say
all wrong.
Gower. It doesn't say to Gower. It says the Gower.
Well, I can't help it if they get. I can't help it if you go. Is that Wikipedia?
No, it's not Wikipedia. It's not on Wikipedia. Nana's Cave is mentioned on Wikipedia, but it's not actually. I'm not actually doing that from Wikipedia. I'm doing this from the Royal Commission on Ancient Historical Monuments, to be honest.
No, I'm amazed they've got it wrong.
Oh, for God! Look, we're archaeologists. We're bound to get things wrong.
Oh.
Let me show you an image of Nana's Cave, okay? So I can brighten your day up a bit. So if we put, it's not the Nana's Cave, it's Nana's Cave. Oh God, I can't believe I changed the whole book because I got what you. I'm sure you said. Anyway, you didn't even buy a copy of the book. You said you'd buy a copy of the book if I got the Gower right or wrong.
I've got a copy of the book though. You
can shut up. Nobody asked you. So there we go. That's Nana's Cave. So you can clearly see with the Carboniferous rock there, and you can see the wonderful folds in the rock, and it's very enigmatic. And if we sort of go and we have a little look at that. Now, lots of these things today are near the coast, but back in the day, these would have looked out across this sort of landscape. 10,000 years ago, this was all dry land. It was that's what it was. It's quite a small cave, and it's only 5 meters in depth, but within that cave, we've got archaeological evidence going back 10,000 years. So that takes us into the Mesolithic period. Human remains, we find remains of animals that have been long extinct from the landscape. And again, talking about this, it links us in with the other archaeology that there's so if we there's another site on the island called Potter's Cave, which we'll just we'll just mention now, which has got nothing to do with the Gower. So we got this cave called Potter's Cave, which we've mentioned. So back to this Nana's Cave. So they removed 3 sets of human skeletons, Mesolithic period, and we do actually have evidence within this cave as well, this Nana's Cave, not Potter's Cave, because we've got 3 skeletons removed from here of Roman evidence as well. And it's also believed that within this cave as well, not going back just 10,000 years ago, the evidence in this cave dates back 12,000 years ago. So that's very important. That really important Paleolithic evidence, pre melting of the ice. It's just so important. And you've got the Ox Cave as well, Ogof Ir Achen. And Ogof Ir Achen, we've got the bones of humans being specifically radiocarbon dated. Now this is a cave that was excavated in the 1970s, and this cave excavated in the 1970s got radiocarbon dates, which is absolutely brilliant. We've been talking about Mesolithic generally today, and we've been talking about Neolithic, and we've got the early Paleolithic evidence from Coldy Island, but also we've got radiocarbon dates that tell us that at Oxen Cave, the radiocarbon dates tell us that the evidence in there dates back to 9,600 years ago, which is absolutely amazing. 9,600 years ago. So that's what the radiocarbon dates tell us, which is brilliant. Interesting enough as well, those radiocarbon dates from those bones that I've mentioned from 9,600 years ago, interestingly enough, even though they were quite some distance away from the coast, what we do find in regards to the radiocarbon dates, and they've looked at the bone evidence again, they've found that these people lived on a diet of marine food. So whilst they're hunting all this game that's still just about hanging on within the area, their diets changed. And when I say hanging on with the area, maybe most of that big game was gone, and they're starting to rely upon a marine diet near on 10,000 years ago. So that's great. So we're getting that evidence. And then later on, in regards to Coldy Island, what we do find is evidence of the Neolithic period, Neolithic bones, shells associated with the Neolithic period, and so on and so on. So Coldy Island is yet to give us even more archaeological evidence, and hopefully that more archaeological evidence will paint will paint a greater picture. Do you know what I'm going to do? I want to just look at this chart again, and we started off with this. So if we want to sort of bit of a recap, that sort of line, that light blue line there between the darker blue and the light blue, just in front of Lundy Island. Just to recap, 12,000 years ago, that's where the line would have been. About 11,500 years ago, the sea is lapping at the shoreline of Lundy Island. About 10,000 years ago, Lundy Island is really coming into the echelons as an island. But it's very likely that Coldy Island, because the water, because the natural geology is quite shallow today. It's only a mile away. It probably proves that Coldy Island was probably maybe connected to the mainland up until about 5,000 years ago. Maybe this is one of the later ones to become an island in the Bristol Channel out of the 5 that we've looked at today. And with that, we've got the Neolithic evidence of people going back and forth between the island and the mainland. It's a bit like the the modern, it's a bit like the ancient equivalent of what Sully Island would have been. 1,000 years ago, Sully Island would have been part of the natural landlocked geology. And 700 years ago, Sully Island becomes a proper island. And also, we can think of that as well. I've not mentioned another island in the Bristol Channel, Barry Island. I haven't mentioned that because that would have been a whole talk in itself. But what we do know, again, when, as I already mentioned, when they were excavating for the second port at Barry, Dock 2, when they were excavating that out in 1895, a guy working locally from Scotland, a guy, John Story, was excavating quite locally. He was brought to a site where they were actually digging out sort of tree trunks, and the tree trunks had evidence of axe marks into the tree trunks. And I do believe, if this is right, and this was recorded right, that some axes were actually found, and this was 40 feet down. So again, over time, the area between Barry and Barry Island, the Barry Island Sound, that's filled with water, but at one stage it was connected to the mainland, as it's connected to the mainland today. So what I'm going to do now, I want you to keep those thoughts with you that I asked earlier on. I asked you specifically, both of you, whether you could think about thinking how can you find archaeology? How can you think about finding archaeology how can you think about there being archaeology somewhere when no archaeology is being found? That's the specific question that I asked, right? So by the end of this little next bit to do with Denny Island, right, we can discuss that. So if we look at this, Denny Island's much further up. There it is. That's Denny Island there, little rock. There it is. She's poking through. So that's what we're going to do. I'm just going to, I've just got to try and make sure that my notes are properly up here. I'm going to get this resolved next week. Do you know what? Do you know what? In the past 2 months, I've broken 4 screens on 4 separate laptops. Don't ask me how. One screen I sat on, one screen I stood on, one screen I tapped the screen, and the other one I smacked on the side of a desk because I got upset. This one, the screen is still okay. So we're going to look at Denny Island. So let's look at Denny Island now quickly, and let's get you an image of Denny Island. Now, I'm not going to ask the silly question, has anyone ever been out to Denny Island? But if the answer is yes, I love you. Goff, Henry, have you ever been out to Denny Island?
Absolutely not, but I've been fascinated by the sight of it when I crossed the Severn Bridge.
Do you know what? I want you to tell me about that experience, because that's part of what we're doing. Yeah, you tell me about it, because you know it. Then you know it. You're in love with it as much as I am. Just tell me a little bit more about that experience, please.
Well, I've noticed over the years, as you travel across, this rock or island appearing, obviously, certainly when the tide is low, you can definitely see it. And I've actually tried to find information on it on maps, and because I didn't know the name of it, I hadn't been able to find anything.
It's called Denny Island.
Yeah. But
Denny, Denny Island.
But it intrigues me as to, was it a potential crossing point at some stage?
Go on.
Going back, way back, we're talking thousands of years.
Yeah.
For the inhabitants, because it would have been a high point to actually aim for, actually, in the estuary. Yeah,
you are very right, and to be honest with you, when you think about it, it could have been a location where they could actually build a bridge across, and they didn't decide not to do that. It is carbonate rock, so it's really, really solid. Now I've been amazed and fascinated by Denny Island for many, many years. There it is now. It's very, very, very small. It's, when we've mentioned about Steepholm, 50 50 acres being like, you know, at high water level. That's the area. 50 acres. But we think about Lundy Island being 3 miles long. This little island in the Bristol Channel is not even an acre in area. It's 0.6 acres in area. So that may sound absolutely tiny, but the way we've divided where we are now, you know, actually 0.6 acres isn't a really tiny spot. Today you could probably build about 4 or 5 houses in a 0.6 acre spot. So it's not massively small. It's not a thimble prick within the Bristol Channel. But in the sakes of what this is about, to look at Denny Island, let's just give you what history we've got. It's a rock that's been argued over between England and Wales over the generations. It's a carboniferous rock. It's not inhabited, which is obvious. And at low water level, it commands a much bigger area. So if we look at, where's that? There was a little image on there. You can actually see it. You can see more of an area. Hang on. If we type in, go back there. It's a much bigger area, and that's been eroded away over time. So if we and do you know what we're going to do? We're going to take the unusual. Somebody's actually done a video here of Denny Island, and if we can. Let's visit that. See if we can get the little video on of this. Yeah, somebody's going around. There's no difference on it. So they're navigating around. See little rocks sticking out of rock. This is obviously at high water. So this was 9 years ago. Great, and there's very Denny Island. Very little. You can only get out there on either side, and there's something really special. I know this cut to the bit of it, and you can see that it is. Look at that. I know you see it inside, but there is soil there. There are birds on it, but the nesting ground. And actually, if you could use the grey sheep on one day, I've got 6 Shetland sheep, and that's probably all you're going to be able to get on. Little sheep with little legs. So we're going to go back again. Hang on. So if we go again, that is actually on Denny Island again. People have been out there, but it's just trying to that's Valerian, and I think that's Valerian. I'm not sure. I think it is. So in other words, high water mark is administered by Monmouthshire, but you can only get to it from the English side. So its location is approximately 3 miles north of Portishead, and it is surrounded by sandbanks, known as the Welsh Grounds. Its foreshore area changes dramatically according to the state of the tide, because tides in the estuary and the Bristol Channel are amongst the second highest in the world. So rise and fall of 14 meters on when you get to the spring equinox. So usually about 10 meters rise and fall. Nesting ground of sort of normal seabirds. So a tiny little bit about the history, and this is we don't have any more than this. So I just we don't have much more than this. So Denny Island, Denny, is first recorded in documents from the Somerset end, from the Bristol end. It's referred to a dun ye, D-U-N, which ye could refer to sea, ye, sea, and the dun being referred to as maybe a structure, or maybe an island, dun, or a rise, dun. Different ways of looking at this. And in the Old English, it's referred to as the hill which is round, the rounded hill, or the island shaped like a dome. So dun, yea, yea, island, dun, hill, raise, mound, Bryn. So it's basically a very, very miniature version of Steepholm. But when you talk about miniature version of Steepholm, it's what is it, 1/100th of the area? Is that right? 100th. Yes, is it one? Yes, it's going to be about 100th of the area of Steepholm. So it's very, very small indeed. There was some talk years ago about having it as an open access area for common land. They were going to make it common land. Anyone could go out there, anyone could graze, but that was stopped. So that was a controversy in 2004. Now, the one thing I'm going to ask, and this is where we end it really, the thing that I've asked you both to think about, and if we, there it is, that's spectacular. Now, I'll do my piece and then you can jump in on there, right? We've looked at 4 other islands: Caldy, Steep, Flatholm, and Lundy Island. And on all of them, there's evidence of human occupation. And at every single stage, they were all once part of the land, like this was once part of the land. This probably became part of the mainland. It became part of the sea and a feature in the sea, probably very, very late. But we're talking about maybe 3,500, 4,000 years ago, somewhere like that, just after Caldy Island. Now, as far as I'm aware, there's been no archaeological excavation on the island. There's been absolutely no work on the island at all. There's been no occupation proper. We know it's mentioned in 1373 because people are grazing out there. There's no sign of any disturbance unless we can find records from the Roman era. We don't know what's going on with the island. So this island itself is possibly the only island in the Bristol Channel with perfectly intact prehistoric archaeological evidence. And it's a gem. It's a time capsule. Anything on the island has been there for a very, very long time and undisturbed. And I believe that if archaeologists had even excavated even a small area on the island, they would have a complete sequence of any occupation, any evidence, which would be undisturbed, absolutely perfect. Unlike lots of the sites that we've been looking at, like Craswell Coyotes and Pavlan Cave and the other islands in the Bristol Channel. So what we're going to do, I can actually close on that, and I just want your opinion and what your thoughts are on what I've just mentioned. So what do you think about that, what I've just mentioned, Gough and Henry, that there could be a massive degree of undisturbed archaeology on this island, or could I be completely wrong? What do you think about that, both of you?
Yeah, I think probably you're right. There could be very easily, yeah.
Because nobody's been out there.
That's all no.
Nobody, it's not been disturbed. Thank you for that, and then we'll ask if there's any questions about anything else in a moment. What about you, Henry? What do you think about that? Am I barking?
No, I don't think you are, because if I recall, in recent years, they dug out of the mud along, not far from here, a log boat.
On the Welsh side, yeah.
On the Welsh side, I think it was.
Yeah.
So as a crossing point, if you look at it, I think it would be a place you would definitely aim for, and therefore it's a place that you would actually find evidence of activity.
There we go. It's basically equal, isn't it? It's equal between the two. Yeah.
So it's an ideal place to stop.
And do you know what? If you were going to do any archaeological work on it, it'd have to be in the summer, and you'd have a good tent, loads of pot noodles and water, and obviously a boat to get off.
Yeah, a copy of your book.
What's that?
And a copy of your book.
And a copy of my book that
with the Gower.
The revised edition that mentions Gower.
I found it on another page now as well.
63.
No, what? Well.
So shut up, you. Right, okay. What I'm going to ask: are there any questions, folks, on this beautiful landscape that we've been looking at today? You got anything else to say, Gough?
No, that was really one of your better ones. We've done islands before, I know, but that was really good. Yeah, very interesting. Yeah, I liked it.
And we got this Nana's cave.
I thought you were going to cover.
Like, go on.
The wolves.
Wolves Rise.
Bristol Channel.
Yeah.
Right, actually, it's actually. Do you know what? You right. I'm glad you mentioned it. The Wolves and the Spires by Flatholm, right? And basically, they're little rocks that stick out, really jagged, nasty rocks that there's likely to be lots of ships that have gone down. And do you know what we're going to do? Actually, you are really, really right about that. The Wolves. It is the Wolves, isn't it? The Wolves.
Yeah.
Not wolves. The wolves.
No, not wolves. The
No.
wolves.
The wolves.
The wolves and the
wolves.
Spires.
Yes, that's right.
Oh, here we go. I didn't know there would be. There's a whole Wikipedia thing on it. Hang on. Oh, there it is. Oh my God! Do you know what? When I've been out there, I
Oh my gosh.
Oh my God! Look at that. Do you know what? I know about the wolves. I know about them, but I didn't. I had no idea that they. No, that's not the wolves, is it? I had no idea that the wolves were. Hang on, where are we? We're lost it again. The wolves. Let's go. I had no idea. Do you know what? I had no idea they were that big. And you know what? You've mentioned something which I did mention on. I did mention this on. Oh God, I can't get my words out. I mentioned this on Tuesday, but I didn't go any further. Let's just do the Wikipedia thing on it. Here we go. The Swansea packet sank with all 60 passengers and crews because of the wolves. We're talking about the William and Mary going down. They measure approximately 25 meters by 20 meters and were responsible for the wrecking of at least 2 ships. Well, probably hundreds of ships, to be honest with you. And also, what we're going to do, I'm going to test myself now. We're going to do, they're on the way to Flatholm, I think about a mile away from Flatholm, about 2 miles from the coast. And there's also the Spires, which is also in the Bristol Channel. And I'm going to see if we're going to see that. I think I got the name right. Bristol Channel. We've got Spires Hospital. Oh, there is something else out there. It is something like the Spires, but yeah. Anyway, thanks for bringing that to us because again, that would have been a hill. That would have been a place with trees that would have been occupied at one spot. And today it's occupied by ships that get wrecked on it.
I think you've got a lot of these. You've got Monkston Rock.
Yeah.
Which at spring tides you can see, as an outcrop which got a big mast on it, a light. And then of course, as you know, Carl, you've got Bendrix Rock, which are also very interesting, aren't they?
Yeah, the Bendrix Rock, exactly. Can you remind me where Monk's Rock is? That's off Landswick Major Coast, isn't it?
Monkston, it's just off Cardiff.
Oh, the one that was a peril to shipping, right? Okay.
Yeah, it's got a light. It's not a buoy. It's a fixed like a lighthouse, but a buoy type thing. It flashes. Yeah. And at spring tides, you can see the rock. Yeah.
We're going to quickly do this as an end because Monkston Rock. We're just going to. I think that's right. It should come up. Is it called the Monkston Rock?
No.
It's not. It's called Monkston Rock. There we go. Oh, there it is. Oh my God! I had no idea. So there is the rock at low tide.
Yeah.
Oh my God! Do you know what? I've learned something today. I'd heard of something, but I didn't know it was that. Oh wow! There it is. Oh, how exciting! Yes, that's very exciting. Thank you. So obviously that's another little island at one point. That's another little hill at one point.
Yeah.
See, you go into this and you see more and more, and we'll probably you go on to the other side of the Bristol Channel and come up with more.
Oh.
That is anyway. Thanks for sharing that, you two. That's been great. I really appreciate that. That's been a little bit more today. That is really, really good. So anyway, that really worked well today. And next week I need to tell you what we're going to do. Next week I'll be thanking you for something. Wicked look on my face.
I won't be here, remember.
So how am I going to thank you for paying your fees next week?
Oh, he's on about ready money all the time.
Yes!
Terrible.
He hasn't read my messages yet.
Oh, we're going to read your messages next week. Are going to be look. Oh, you're going to miss Clement Reid next week. Well, you're going to have to pick up. You need a bit of Clement Reid. I've got to be honest with you. You've got to watch it online or something, whatever, the recording. And basically, here we go. We're going to read out all the stuff, contributions from Henry, then we'll call it a day. My end coming up as unstable. Got that. Slow worm, not native to Ireland, but was introduced in 1970 from UK. Here we go. Page 100, but lowercase, the on the Gower. Oh, shut up. Right. The Burren is a recent event. The surface cuts. I can't even say it. Acidification.
That's basically the stripping away by glacier.
Never heard of that. I know of the stripping away by glacier, but it's acidification. Never come across that. That's something else I've done today. 10,000 years ago. Appreciate that. Now I have lived in this area, and there is a beach at Liscannor, is just at the start of the Burren in Ireland, on which the rocks with plant leaves on them could be trees. Okay, thanks for that. Now on beaches at Galloway, north of Burren, you have tree stumps going back 7,000 years. So in other words, there were trees at one stage, but it's all been eroded away. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you. So in other words, we've got karstification about 10,000 years ago when the ice is retreating and it karstifies the landscape. Trees come in, and then by about 7,000 years ago, the trees all go. Is that a good assessment?
Yes.
Galloway, top of the world here, sir.
Or
top of the world.
Galway, I may have gone.
Galway, top of the world. Right. On that note,
Carl,
Henry,
one thing. Carl,
what's that?
That program I was telling you about when we started, it's called Hidden Wales, and the presenter is Will Millard.
Will Millard, never heard of him. He sounds like a nice academic, sensible guy who doesn't put oil peel on the top of his head. That's good.
Get on with him. He's got the same. He likes the old buildings. He likes it. He likes it.
Good. He's in love with it. That's the main thing.
So anyway, check it out. Yeah.
Anyway, appreciate that. So Will Millard.
Yeah.
Will Millard. Anyway, thank you for that, Goff.
Okay.
If Goff, you have thanks. Everyone's made great contributions today. So Goff and Henry, if you've got nothing else to say today, Goff, I'll see you next week. Henry, don't forget to look online.
I'll send this back.
Yeah, sure. You won't get a refund though. Well, you just send it back with the corrections. On that note, folks, right? Henry and Goff, I really appreciate your time today, and I will see one of you next week anyway. Thank you very much.
Okay. Bye.
Bye for now.
Take care, Goff, Henry. Bye. Bye. See you. Bye. See you, Henry. That's been a blast. Good.
Yeah. Enjoy yourself.
I will. I gotta lie down for 10 minutes in a dark room, dark shed with the goats.
Right. Bye for now.
Bye. Take care. Bye. Bye. See you. Anyway, thanks for watching today. It's been a long one. I'm just going to check to see what's happening on the Bristol on the feed. I'm just going to go here, see if there's any messages. And if I kept that off there, I got to see if there's any messages online now. Let's spend some time with those of you online. I know there's been a couple of you watching online. So hang on. I've got to try and work out what I'm doing wrong here. If we do that, no. Okay. Right, we want to do that. I'm just trying to work out, I've got problems with technology today. So, as you can probably appreciate. Right, so if we got that there, Kylie was here today. Is she online? Nope. Right, so love the Gower. So I'm just gonna say on here, a like and subscribe. Okay, no Kylie online. Nope. Bryn online. One of you is watching. Anyway, thanks for watching today. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Really appreciate your time. And I'm just going to see if there's anything else in the chat box now before I close. So we've done all the chat stuff. I'm getting on to Ireland and the tree stumps. Anyway, so tree stumps there 7,000 years ago. It ties in with when Ireland became disconnected from Britain, supposedly. Some people believe me. Okay, then, so what we're going to do is call that a day. Thank you very much for watching. And we're going to stop the live stream.